politics. His son, Mr. W. R. Climie, was secretary of the Ontario Press Association, and editor and proprietor of the Bowmanville Sun until his death in 1894. William Climie, another son of the pioneer, lived on the homestead on the second concession line. The two remaining brothers, George and Andrew, went to Perth County, and have left there a numerous line of descendants. Other settlers in the south east. At Churchill, Galvin Allen, one of the Dalhousie settlers, took up lot 16, concession 3, north half, in 1832, and lived there for about 8 years, when he moved a mile further north. His sons have been identified with this neighbourhood from the beginning of the settlement. On the opposite corner of the crossroads, on south half, lot 15, concession 4, John Gimby, a native of England, settled with his family in 1833. 3 children of this family died during the local outbreaks of cholera in the autumn of 1849. This family removed to the township of Derby, near Owen Sound, where John and Joseph hewed out new homes for themselves in the unbroken forest. These 2 men in their neighbourhood became well known, the latter of whom died on November 21st, 1889, at the age of 63, leaving a large family. In the early years of its existence, Churchill was known as Gimby's Corners, and subsequently as Bully's Acre, from the rough characters who often congregated there and held a "merry Dublin." One of the best known citizens of Churchill for many years was Henry Sloane. By trade he was a waggon maker, and pursued his calling at this place. He was a prominent Orangeman, one of his ancestors having come with William of Orange from Holland and settled in Ireland. He was second deputy reeve of Innisfil for 2 years, 1869 70. In the neighbourhood of Lefroy, Henry Grosse, who had arrived in the county in 1832, after some time spent in West Gwillimbury, settled on south half, lot 21, concession 4, Innisfil, and had a sawmill there at an early date. He was a native of England, became a justice of the peace, and was at one time a member of the township council. His death occurred in 1888. The village of Lefroy was named after General Sir John Henry Lefroy, who from 1844 until 1853 was in charge of the Magnetic Observatory in Toronto. General Lefroy's first wife was a daughter of Chief Justice Sir John Beverley Robinson. John Cripps, who arrived upon south half 20, concession 4, about the same time as the other pioneers of this neighbourhood, at first performed all his farm work with only 1 ox. Then, after fortune had smiled more graciously upon him, with a horse and an ox yoked together, which presented a spectacle rather more amusing than convenient. Some years later he sold his farm, and shortly afterwards a false report was circulated by some one that gold had been found upon the farm which he had just left, causing him sorely to regret the sale of his possession. While in this neighbourhood it may be proper to say a few words upon Bellewaerde, once the commercial metropolis of this Lake Simcoe region. For a long time, immediately after the opening of the Northern Railway in 1853, it was the busiest distributing point in the north, for there all the traffic of Lake Simcoe centred. It was the headquarters of the boats and the shipping of the lake. In 1852, Sage and Grant, 2 capitalists from the United States, built a large sawmill there, the largest in these parts at the time. While good timber was plentiful around the lake, a large business was carried on, but after a few years the timber limits became partially exhausted, the large mill was accidentally burned down, and Bellewaerde dwindled in size. With regard to the orthography of the word Bellewaerde, a curious circumstance arises. The place was named after the late Mr. Bellewaerde, spelt Bell, separate word Ewart, and the word is so spelled in all records of the Post Office Department, but for some reason or other the most frequent rendering was Bellewaerde, spelt Belle, separate word Ewart, and a majority of the older books and records persisted in using the final e. It is recorded, though with what degree of correctness we have been unable to learn, that a pioneer named Jacob Gill pitched his habitation in 1821 on lot 23, concession 2, near De Grasse Point, just in from the lake shore, where for a number of years he was left the sole disturber of the woodland peace. With Bellewaerde the list of deserted villages is not exhausted, for about 3 miles to the north of that place, beyond Cedar Point, on the shore of a small bay, was once the village of Lakeland. Here was a saw mill and 2 or 3 dozen houses, but the place lost its human habitations. End of excerpt of the History of Simcoe County, recorded by Esther in Innisfil, Ontario, Canada.